Hello, and welcome to another edition of Storytelling on Orchard Street. I'm Pete Solomita, your host. We're in the P&T Knitwear bookstore on 180 Orchard Street. With me today, I have an old friend, singer, songwriter extraordinaire, musician, author, and a man of many talents. I'd like to welcome today Mr. Phil Gammage.
Thank you, Pete. Great to be here.
Awesome. I mean, we recently reconnected. I mean, over the years, we here and there, but recently reconnected. Of course, I guess Voodoo Martini, I joined, there's a band I joined that was your band. It was like 92 or something like that?
I think it was more like 95 or 96, actually. I was putting the band together, so you came in on the ground floor.
Huh, okay.
Yeah.
And
Pedro Caliente, I believe, was your stage name.
That's right. It was a really fun band to be in. And one thing I want to say about you in that band, and I recently saw you in your blues quintet last week at Shenanigans in Brooklyn. And I have to say, besides being gifted, you really work the stage well. You're a professional up there. And last week I was blown away by your band and the way it all worked out, the way you cued people in and out, and it's a great band. I really recommend people to go check it out. But you're not from New York City, so tell us a little bit about how you arrived in New York City and wound up being a fixture in the music scene.
Well, it's a random story. It wasn't anything that I had charted out as a teen or a college-age person. I got into music pretty big when I was 18 and 19. At the time I was living in Colorado, and I eventually hooked up with a couple of guys and started playing music with them. And they were New Yorkers.
Okay.
That were living out in Boulder, Colorado, where I was.
But you're not originally from
No,
Texas.
I'm originally from Texas,
right.
Yes. Houston.
Right.
And but I did live in Boulder for a spell, and that's where I met these guys. And, they painted such a great picture in New York City. You got to come to the city.
Wow.
And I thought I'd try it out. I was kind of loose ends. I didn't have a whole lot of commitments.
But how old were you at that point?
I think I was 21, 22 maybe. And so I came here. And, of course, pretty soon those guys had a lot of personal problems. One of them got into drugs real heavily. So whatever creative work I was doing with them fell by the wayside. So I decided to stay here a while longer, maybe a year. And the first year here for me was pretty rough.
I can imagine.
I didn't know a lot of people, right. And I was kind of counting on those fellas to be my ambassadors to the world of the arts here, and it just didn't work out for me. But then things started to kind of fall in place.
You've been in a number of different musical outfits. To me, they're pretty diverse styles. So Voodoo Martini, if you want to talk about that a little bit and how that came up.
Yeah.
And some of the other things you did, and maybe if you want to talk about your musical influences.
Okay. About the time I came up with the concept for Voodoo Martini, which was 95, 96, I was really starting to get hip to a lot of the revivalism in retro music and retro culture that was going on in America. And at the time that came along, I had just been dropped by a French record label, New Rose Records. They actually were sold to Sony.
Right.
So a lot of artists got...
When you say dropped as a solo artist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd put out a few albums with them. I'd gone over to Europe, thanks to them. Yeah, it was fun group. And kind of the nucleus of that, Jimmy and I moved on from that to form a swing band called the Scarlet Dukes. And that kind of ran its course. A lot of things happened. The scene kind of died out. And for me, on a spiritual level, when Windows on the World went down, I just kind of felt it was
I don't know if the listeners all know. That was a really fancy bar restaurant on the top floor of the
World Trade Center. I
yeah.
forget which one, but where we played was actually the greatest bar on earth. That was technically...
Windows on the World was the restaurant, and then we were in the bar.
Yeah, I think they might have been on two. I always say Windows on the World just because people know it more. But They might have been on, 108th and 109th floor.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Right. Right. That was intense.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Had some great nights up there.
Yep.
Uh,
So, Certain General was in what time frame?
Certain Journal was kind of running parallel to all of this, more or less. I'd started working with them early on when I moved here, and
As a guitarist, right?
yeah, I was lead guitarist. I did some songwriting, very minimal lead vocals, but I did a little bit.
Right.
Background vocals, even played a little harmonica, and I was in and out of that band. It's kind of a saga. There's a lot of drama.
Of course, that's rock and roll.
With rock bands,
There's always drama somewhere.
Yeah,
So you just mentioned drama. I mean, Certain General was pretty good independent band. I mean, they had some notice, and you know what it's like to have the drama. But imagine like people the way they talk about the Beatles and shocked about the drama that took place in especially the later years. But the pressure that band must have been under. What do you expect, right?
Oh, they really lived in a bubble.
Yeah,
I've heard quotes from several of them that they were glad they had a band, as opposed to someone like Elvis who just had no one.
right. Right.
So they
Elvis being one of your influences.
No. Yeah. I've gone through a couple of Elvis phases. That's kind of that's kind of how I am. Right. I kind of really get into something on a pop culture level,
right,
and really absorb it, and then a lot of times I spew it out in my own art.
Yeah, I notice you're influenced a lot by like 50s art and 40s like film noir and 50s pop or rock. And
that's right.
Yeah.
Yep. I have been for a number of years.
Right. Even in your furnishing, your home and furnishing.
Yeah, I'm not a total zealot like some people are.
Right. But it's sprinkled in there.
Yeah, it's sprinkled in there. What my wife allows.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I guess you get.
Trust me.
Yes.
It would look different if it was my big man cave.
Right. You had a bachelor pad.
Yeah, space age bachelor
yes.
pad. Yeah, and. A lot of that had to do, or was a big part of Voodoo Martini's aesthetic.
Right.
But it continues to this day, lyrically and so forth, and musically, and certainly the art. I started collecting those pulp novels from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. God, like 25 years ago. I kind of tailed off on that in recent years. I still have them all,
right,
and I've read a lot of them, and. Now you can find the artwork online,
right.
So I'm kind of repurposing that artwork for my own needs.
Got it. So we'll talk a little bit about your current music phase. It's a blues band.
Well,
mostly a little country in there.
Well, we kind of started off as straight blues. And it's slowly kind of diversified.
Right.
And
I definitely heard some country in there.
Yeah, we do country. I call it country gold because none of it's after 1975. I lost kind of, other than Dwight Yoakam in the 80s, I really don't have much use for country music after that period. So
you know what? I actually have been finding some really good current country artists. Well,
turn me on to them.
Charlie Crockett comes to mind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. There are a few.
Yep. So this is called Storytelling on Orchard Street, and in my mind, musicians tell stories. I feel like in your writing, your songwriting for sure, there's definitely stories there in a compact, 4-minute.
Yeah,
framework.
that's really the beauty of writing lyrics is you don't have a whole lot of space to say something. So you really want to make every line count,
right?
And not waste any. All killer, no filler,
right?
And it's a challenge.
Yep, for sure. And but you also are working on a novel, correct? Or a short story, or might be.
I've written several short stories, and
where can people find them?
Well, I have a page at medium.com,
okay,
which is kind of a multi-purpose literary portal for a lot of different things.
Right.
I don't know if a lot of people are using it to post fiction, but I'm comfortable with it. Some of those stories I've had online at various other places in the past, but now I've got them under one umbrella, which is cool.
Right. The one I heard you read here, which is how I met Wayne Kroll. Wayne Kroll does a biweekly read-ins here at P&T, where in the back here, and that's how I found out about the podcast studio. And you read something which is really cool, and it definitely influenced by what we were talking about before. Right? Am I correct? Like the
heavy influence.
You want to read it?
Well, that was.
I mean, I don't know if that's what you chose to read,
actually,
but you brought something with you.
Yeah, I wanted to read something different.
That's fine. Yeah.
This was one of the first pieces I wrote, and this really kind of got me, kind of kicked off me doing the short story thing. And the way I came about writing it is pretty convoluted, and it was basically I had this office job, and one of my coworkers was this middle-aged Vietnam vet ex-junkie. And he was an interesting guy. He wasn't always easy to work with. I'm not going to say his name.
Okay.
Sadly, he's no longer with us. But he really hit me to a lot of elements of pre-hippie era American culture, like burlesque and Lenny Bruce, and a whole lot of that kind of stuff that was bubbling under the mainstream in those years. Maybe, I guess you'd say the Eisenhower or Kennedy years.
Right.
And I've always been a big history buff. I was a history major for a little while in college, and it's always fascinated me. And in particular, the Kennedy assassination was something that always intrigued me. And so this guy that I worked with, he had these two characters, fictional characters he kept talking about. Don't ask.
Okay.
But one was called Monty DeMonte.
All right.
And Monty was a guy from Brooklyn who was kind of on the outskirts of the criminal world, celebrity world, burlesque world. He kind of was this player.
Right.
And his girlfriend was a woman named LaVon St. John, who was an exotic dancer. And they had a torrid romance.
Okay.
And an open relationship.
Nice.
This is all in his head, you know?
Okay.
So just on a lark,
head he has.
I decided to write this story. So
Okay.
I'm going to pick it up. Just a little background. Due to time constraints, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But Monty and LaVon found themselves living in Dallas, Texas in 1963.
Okay.
LaVon was employed by the Premier Talent Agency, which booked the Southwest burlesque houses. So she was playing New Orleans, Dallas, Houston, Memphis, all these different places. And Monty was doing his usual, card shark, numbers racket.
Okay, got it.
All right, okay, here we go. Quick swig.
Good idea.
DeMonte's whereabouts on November 22nd, the day of Kennedy's assassination, are unknown. The following day, he called his cousin, Ralph Dino Sorbello, in Brooklyn, who recollected that, quote, Monty was all shook up, but said something like he was glad it was all over with. I didn't know what he was referring to or to what the hell he was talking about. I was as upset as anyone else about Kennedy getting knocked off. It was like a punch in the gut, close quote. Interestingly, after November 22nd, DeMonte began spending much less time in Dallas. Though he continued to live with St. John in Oak Cliff, he was seen much more in Houston and on occasion in New Orleans. His friend Al still has a New Orleans postcard from DeMonte dated January 1st, 1964. On the card, DeMonte talks about going to a hell of a party in the quarter, but many remember him as traveling to New Orleans and to Houston to make connections for his numbers racket. Through Jada being a stripper at Jack Ruby's Colony Club,
All right.
that Monty was friends with
Got it.
on an intimate level. Through Jada, he met her half-brother, Houston resident Sid Travanti, during this time and stayed with him at his apartment on Kirby Drive when he was in town. A letter to Jada from Sid in January of '64 mentions the two men going to the Tidelands Motor Inn at 6500 South Main in Houston to do some tomcatting. By February of that year, St. John's contract with Premier Talent Management was nearly over, and she made plans to return to California, with or without DeMonte. Though they enjoyed an open relationship where either could openly see other sexual partners, Jada recalled that St. John was deathly jealous of the fact that she and Monty continued to see each other in both Dallas and Houston during their frequent trysts. That, combined with Jack Ruby's arrest and her contract with Premier ending, gave St. John plenty of motivation to leave Dallas once and for all. She departed for the West Coast following a performance in Dallas the first week of April 1964 and never returned. By that time, DeMonte had moved out on St. John, left Dallas, and had gone to living in Houston. City records show he resided in an apartment complex on Hazard Street in the Montrose neighborhood for at least a couple of months in the spring of '64. What exactly his activities were is still largely unknown, but there are strong indications based on reliable sources that he was still in the numbers racket as well as dipping into some sports gambling ventures. Indications are that he enjoyed Houston and felt it was a growing city with much potential for a man of his talents. DeMonte mailed a Polaroid photo of himself and an unknown woman to his friend Al in the winter of '64 with his handwritten caption, "Me and Barbara at Sin Alley," on the back. Houston historians will know this probably refers to the infamous block on Mid Lane between San Felipe and Westheimer in West Houston that hosted many swinger parties during the 1960s. From all appearances, DeMonte was enjoying himself. This all changed with the untimely and mysterious death of his friend Sid Travanti on April 9th.
Awesome, yeah. I look forward to that becoming a bigger piece of literary.
Yeah, well, there's more to it.
Yeah.
The name of the piece, I forgot to give it, is "Did Lee Harvey Oswald conspire with Monty DeMonte and Sid Travanti to assassinate JFK?" And on a couple side notes about this, as you see, one of the main characters is Sid Travanti. I received a random email from George Travanti asking me if Sid was his cousin or something, or a relative of his. Now, I totally made up Sid Travanti, okay? But it was a sweet letter.
But how did that
Well,
come
I had
about?
it online
Right.
at other places. I guess
Okay.
you could find it with a search engine.
Right.
I actually had it on my music website for a while prior to migrating it to Medium. And then about 5 years ago, I was contacted by this JFK assassination researcher.
Wow.
And I eventually ended up talking to her on the phone, and she was shocked to find out that it was all made up.
Oh, man.
I mean, it's presented like
Something
an investigative journalist.
Sure, right, right.
But and then she wanted me to come down to Washington, D.C. to meet her and participate in this JFK assassination seminar.
Wow. Did you go?
If it had been paid for, I probably would have.
Right.
Just for the hell of it, just
Oh,
for
man.
kicks.
That could have been interesting. It could have been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an agenda with this piece. I'm
Right.
not trying to claim it's true. It's
Right.
for entertainment purposes only.
Got it. Speaking of entertainment purposes, would this be a good time to play "So Long and Goodbye"?
Sure would. Yeah,
Okay.
this is a song off this album here. This is my most recent album called "From Nowhere to Somewhere."
By the way, Jill commented the artwork is beautiful.
That was taken by my friend and colleague, David Schell, in Kingston, New York, in the Hudson Valley.
Right.
And we actually write songs together. I'll talk about him a little later.
And it's on Prefab.
Prefab International Productions. Yep.
Is that available?
Yes, it's available. I believe this one is only available at Bandcamp at my store. So
Okay.
just go to Bandcamp and do a search for me. And I have the Scarlet Dukes album for sale there.
Cool.
As we discussed, I am prohibited for copyright reasons to sell the Voodoo Martini album at present.
Okay, maybe that'll be fixed.
Maybe
in the
that
future.
can be worked out
Right.
if my people talk to his people.
You want me to be a mediator?
I don't know if you want to go there.
I might give it a shot because I would love for it to be up there.
Well, that would be the reward.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to play "So Long and Goodbye," and then we'll come back and maybe talk more about your current musical enterprises. Okay, cool. This is So Long and Goodbye by Phil Gammage.
All the warm summer nights, so peaceful in July. Here's a toast to the good times, so long and goodbye. Through the night, the scent of flowers floating in the sky, they wrap around my senses, so long and goodbye. The air feels heavy, fireflies hover by, thoughts start to wander on a warm night in July. Fully in the moment, one can only try. Never lose those warm summer nights in July. So long and goodbye. So long and goodbye.
All right, that was fantastic. And that song would not have been out of place in Voodoo Martini. I think we had some material that kind of.
It actually would have, yeah. It's not too far off.
No. And your voice is very distinctive. So even when you're doing different music, your voice is really. I mean, you know, you have a great voice, right? I mean, you really do. So, so talk a little bit about what the band that I saw. That's a pretty fairly often working band.
Yeah, I mean, we work generally in New York City. I go out of town on occasion. It's kind of a floating group of musicians. There's like a core of people I work with, and then some people kind of come in and out. I keep it like that, so if someone goes out of town for 2 weeks, right, I can keep working.
Right. I want to make sure we get the last song in that you wanted me to play. Maybe you could set it up.
Sure. This song is called Ride On. This is a Storytelling on Orchard Street exclusive.
Awesome, man.
This is a rough mix of the song. It will never be played anywhere again.
Wow. Okay.
I'll burn the digital audio file or something.
So if I keep this file, I'll have a collector's item.
Yeah. Don't sell it on eBay.
No, I won't.
But anyway, so it's a work in progress. You'll be able to tell. There's some rough edges. I just want to give a shout out to the players that are on it. Mike Fox is playing drums, Jeff Gordon on bass, Brian Hack on guitar, David Fleming playing harmonica, Joe Nieves on harmony vocals.
Can I throw in there? I was in a band with Joey a long time ago.
Joey and I, we love singing.
He's a great
together.
singer, man.
He is
soul.
probably my favorite local singer.
He's a great soul singer.
Yeah. Oh, I've learned so much about harmony vocals from him.
We did Slip Away and Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore. He killed those two songs. I can't hear them anymore.
I've played Sun.
Right.
Oh, that's what his signature.
Yeah, he does a great version of the Walker Brothers. All right, let's.
I don't think I missed anybody. So.
Well, if you do after the song comes on, while you think about it, let's play Right On, okay?
He was in the dirty dungeon, collecting up the junkie dudes. Got shot by a mean rival baller. He made the evening news. His mark looked like money. Ringer made him a pitch. Got him digging in his pocket. Fell for the old bait and switch. Right on, right on. Right on, right on. We all get some evil when we think we be good. I can't tell you how to live life. I sure as hell screwed up mine. You and I are brothers. We both be doing time. I learned all the damn lessons living down in the hood. I learned all the lessons when we think we be good. Right on, right on. Right on, right on. We all get some evil when we think we be good. Some evil when we think we be good. Right on, right on. Right on, right on. We all get some evil when we think we be good.
Well, right on, man. That was great.
Thank you. I want to mention that's Johnny Young on piano as well.
Good. You didn't leave anybody out.
Hope not.
Well, this has been great fun, Phil. I appreciate you coming down and hearing your music and your stories is always a great pleasure. Any parting things you'd like to say?
If you want to investigate some more of my work, why don't you start with my website, which is philgammagemusic.com. It's a good place to go.
That's a good
I
start.
also have a Bandcamp page. Just run a search on me.
Cool. Well, once again, I want to thank you for being down here.
My pleasure.
Yep. And this has been Storytelling on Orchard Street in the podcast studios of P&T Knitwear Bookstore on Orchard Street. And I want to thank my guest again, Phil Gammage, and thank you all for tuning in.